Hey, thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone, and welcome to my channel. Today we have a 4.7 Toyota. Now this one has noise in the valve train on the passenger side, and had previously had some work done. They had a timing belt, a cam seal, cam seals, and done. So now I got to go back in. We're going to figure out what's going on with this Toyota and see why it's making this noise. So before we do that, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you definitely don't want to miss. Let's go check it out. All right, 2005 4.7 Toyota 4Runner. All right, in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the timing belt and also how to replace the cam seal on, well, I'm going to do it on this bank, but both banks are the same. You see, I have it taken apart because I was taking this apart to find out what was wrong with it. And I'm going to show you how to do this job in reverse. But let me show you what the problem was. So here is the exhaust cam. All right. You see the exhaust cam has two sections. This is a spring-loaded cam. And before you take this out, the first step before you unbolt these cams is to install a service bolt. Now this is like a 6mm by 1.0 or something like that. It's a very common bolt, and all you need is it long enough to go through because the threads are on the front. So when I got it, the threads, so the bolt is here and the threads right here, they were over there. So I couldn't even see the threads or put the bolt in before I took it apart. Now this is very important. If you don't put this bolt in, it will cause valve timing issues, it will cause noise, it will cause noisy valves, valve train issues, all kinds of things can happen. But that is why I took this apart, and I'm going to show you how to do this job in reverse. All right, so to get started, to do this timing belt, what you want to do is pull off this plastic cover here, go ahead and pull your reservoir off. You can leave your radiator in or you can take it out. It depends on if you have a gun small enough to be able to access the crank and break the bolt loose. You're gonna need to go ahead and take the air box out right here. You got a cover. If you're doing the cam seals, you're gonna need to take your the whole air box out because you got to get this valve cover off on both sides. Then you're gonna go ahead and take your drive belt off and your fan. So your fan is held on by nuts. And what I recommend doing is breaking all of them loose before you take the belt off. Just break them loose, don't take them off. Break them loose, take the belt off, and then that way they spin off by hand. And then the fan's a little tricky to get off sometimes, but so from there, once you have all that off, the next step, we'll start getting to the timing belt. First step is going to be taking off this hose assembly right here just to get it out of the way. I'll show you what it looks like when it's off. All right, let's get going. All right, you're gonna go ahead and take this hose off right here, okay? One hose goes down there to the oil cooler. The other one goes right here to the thermostat housing, and the other one goes to the throttle body. Mark your hoses so you know exactly where the clamps go. It's easier to show you this step with this off, but this is what it looks like right here. You got two bolts. You're gonna unbolt those, and this is your thermostat housing. You don't have to take it off, you can leave it in there. Okay, when you take it off, you're gonna have an O-ring here. This will be in a timing cover, in a timing belt kit if you do it with the water pump. And then here is silicone. You're gonna go ahead and pop this off. All right, so on this side, you're gonna go ahead and take this cover off here. All right, you got a stud that comes through the middle, so it's got 3 bolts and 1 nut. This side over here is a little bit different. This side has 4 bolts and a nut, but the cam sensor wire goes through it. So it goes through right there, and there's a rubber grommet that goes on there. All right, you're gonna take this little cover off, but be careful when you put it back together because it has this little nibble right here. So it's gotta go, that's gotta go in first. If you put this in last, it'll sit outside and it'll break and it won't sit right. This is just 2 12s holding this cover on. But like I said, when you put it back together, make sure that you get this plastic piece inside. Right there. Okay, so I took a shortcut this time I've never taken before. Normally I unbolt the whole compressor and just lay the compressor down, and then it's out of the way. But you see this part right here that's on top of the compressor? That's so the compressor can sit on this bracket and make it easy to install. So what I did was I unbolted the bolt that goes right here through from the compressor up into this bracket, and I also undid the lower one and it's directly below it. And I loosened the one at the back so the compressor can move. And then I took this fan bearing assembly out. So you got one 12mm bolt, 14mm bolt, and a 12mm nut. All right, here's your 2 bolts from the compressor. The bottom bolt has this big bracket attached to it, all right, and it goes upward like this. And then the top one is just a bolt. All right, you're gonna go ahead and get your alternator off of here. So what I do is I disconnect the battery because I don't want to disconnect the back of the alternator. So you got one nut here, you got a 14, a 12, and you got a bolt that is right there, all right? You got all those out, and then the alternator will slide forward and then just lay down underneath here. It'll lay down there. But disconnect the battery first. All right, you're gonna go ahead and take your power steering pump out. It's a stud right there. It's one nut, a bolt right there, and a bolt in there. You're gonna take those out, and then the easiest way to do it is to go ahead and just take this stud out with the pump, and then you can let the pump sit down on top of the alternator, and that way it's easier to slide. It's really hard to slide this pump all the way forward on that stud. So the simplest thing to do is take the stud out and just move it out of the way. Be careful for the power steering pressure switch right here. Don't break it. All right, you're gonna go ahead and take your tensioner off now. You're gonna have one nut here and one bolt right there. And then it slides on that stud, and that stud is for the alternator. All right, the easiest way to do this timing belt is just to go ahead and pull the radiator out and you have more room. But if you don't want to pull it out and you have a gun like this, a stubby gun, you can get in there with the radiator in the vehicle and get the balancer bolt off. All right, one of the tricky things about this engine is one component goes inside of another component and another component. And if you don't put it together right, you'll have to take it back apart. So at this point, you're gonna take off this timing cover right here. It's gonna have 4 bolts and there's a pickup inside there. Okay, so if you work on cars a lot, this will happen to you eventually. So on this engine, there's a crank pickup. Now this is for the crank sensor to pick up the engine. And if you do not put this on, it will not start. I did that one time a long time ago. I was in a hurry. So what I do is if this pickup goes inside of the timing cover, when I take the timing cover off, I lay the pickup in there. So when I pick up the cover, there's no way I could miss out on this pickup. Okay. So once you have all your covers off, like this, all right, I always mark my old belt to the cams and the crank, and I lay it down and I mark it to the new belt so I know it's exactly where it needs to be. It's lined up right there, it's lined up right there, and it's lined up right there. So once you've done all that, the next step is to take your tensioner out. You're just gonna unbolt it slowly, go one, then go back and forth, and the tensioner goes, you can see that hole right there, and there's one underneath. It goes underneath. When you take it out, this pulley is gonna fall down because the tensioner pushes this up, all right? So here's your tensioner here. This was just put in, and so I'm gonna put this in a vise, and I'm gonna put the pin back in it and reinstall this. So from here, once you take your tensioner out, you're gonna go ahead and slip your belt off. As long as you have your cams lined up like this, they will stay where they are. And then you're gonna go ahead and unbolt your idler and replace that. You're gonna replace your tensioner pulley here, and you're gonna replace your water pump. All right, if you're putting a timing belt kit in it, it'll come with the tensioner, and it will have a pin in it like that, all right? So I'm reusing this. All I did was put it in a vise, and I depressed this to there until my pin went in. I do a lot of timing belts, so I have a bunch of these pins. So you just keep depressing it until the pin goes in, and it goes about right there. Just make sure your rubber boot's on there, because it's got to go through the rubber boot. Okay, so here's what it looks like installed right there. All right, and there's the 2 bolts, 2 12s. So now, if you're doing your timing belt and you're taking it apart, at this point you would just unbolt this tensioner. When you're putting it back together, it's very important that you, at this step, once you have everything installed, all your idlers, your cams, everything is lined up, you double check all your marks. Okay? Check the mark you made on the belt. Okay? And then once you've done that, you're going to pull your pin. And then you're going to turn the engine over 2 full revolutions, which will be 2 revolutions of the cam or 4 revolutions of the crank. I'm going to turn it over now, and then what you want to do is make sure that all your marks line up. Your marks on your belt will not line up, but the marks of the engine should line up. I'm going to turn it over now. Okay, 2 full revolutions. And now we see that we're lined up there, we're lined up there, and we're lined up there. Now it's imperative that you do that because you're getting the slop out of the timing belt. If you have it all lined up and you don't turn the engine over by hand, your engine will jump. It will jump on this cam most likely. Actually, I think it was this one. It happened to me one time. So don't forget to turn the engine over. Okay, so if you're going to do the timing belt, if you're replacing the timing belt, the next step, the step from here is you're going to go ahead and take your water pump off. All right, so your water pump, you got to, if you're going to replace it, you don't have to worry about cleaning this. This water pump was just replaced, and so I got to clean this to reseal it. You're going to go ahead and take your water pump off, and you're going to replace your idler right here, and also this idler. Now this idler, you undo it here with an Allen, and then this assembly comes out, and you're going to have right under here is where your tensioner goes. Okay, so just so you know, it's easy to remember, right here is a pin in this outer sprocket here. If you're going to do the cam seal, you got to take this off. There's a pin right there, so it lines up. So you can see my timing marks are lined up. Actually, this one's off. This one moved. It was right there. So now I got to move it over when I put the timing belt on. All right, if you're going to do the cam seal, you got to pull the valve cover off. You're going to go ahead and take your ignition coils out, disconnect your fresh air here, undo this bracket, and just move this out of the way. It helps to get the valve cover out, and take the dipstick out. And then from here, you're just going to move all your connectors out of the way and connect them back when you're done. That's only if you're going to do the cam seal. If you're just doing the timing belt, you do not need to pull this apart. All right, so when you take your valve cover off, you'll notice there's silicone here and right there and down there for the caps. All right, you need to put a little bit of silicone in all those places when you put your valve cover back on, and also clean it really well. All right, so if you're going to do the cam seal, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and, after you have your timing belt off, you're going to go ahead and take this sprocket off. Do not take those bolts out, only these that bolt this on. All right, I also take this off just to get it out of the way. This goes up under behind here. It's 2 pieces, goes like that. You got to take it apart to get it out. I take this out to help me clean it. Then to get the cams out, got a hole right there, a threaded hole. Gonna take a bolt like this and it's gonna thread in, because the threads are on the front side of the sprocket, and you're just holding the 2 spring-loaded pieces of the exhaust cam together while you take it out. Then you're going to go ahead and loosen up all these bolts. We're going to take up the valve cover. Then you're going to go ahead and loosen up all these bolts in this front cam cap and all these cam caps. Then you're going to look at your dots, and they should line up like that. See how they line up? All right. All right, you're gonna go ahead and pull out this cap right here. And the angle right there, that little divot, that goes down. So we're gonna go ahead and just clean this. A wire wheel is really good to clean this. And then you're gonna go ahead and clean out that. And also back there, you wanna go ahead and pull those half moons out and clean those and clean that channel. You don't wanna have to redo this valve cover because your half moons are leaking. And you're gonna go ahead and get all the silicone cleaned out from all around here for the end bearing cap. And also, here, you're gonna go ahead and get all this cleaned out. And I'll show you what it looks like when you put it back together. All right, so here's what the intake cam looks like apart. All right, you got a pin right here. And so you've got 4 holes and a pin. And in there you have 5 holes. So if you're not sure, you can mark it so you know which way it goes. But basically the pin has got to go in the right way. And you have all right, so to get the cam seal out, which is right here, you have to get this timing actuator has to come off. It's a timing tube actually is what it's called, all right? Real quick disclaimer, do not take these bolts out. If you take those bolts out, you have to replace this assembly right here. This is called a timing tube. So to do the cam seal, you have to take this off of the cam, okay? And you have a plug on the front of the cam, and you have an Allen that goes right through the center, and that is a 10 millimeter, all right? Like always, I use the carbine tools, 10 millimeter Allen to take that off. And to do the cam seal, you gotta take out these, so you gotta flip this upside down. This side goes towards the cam, and you gotta take out these 4 Allens, okay? And this is keywayed, all right? So you gotta take this out, lift this off, and then your cam seal comes off. And then you clean all this up, lube it up, put your new cam seal on, bolt this down, and then attach this back to your intake cam. All right, so you wanna go ahead and wipe this off real good and put a very thin layer on the edge of where your cam seal is gonna go. We're gonna take our new cam seal, we're gonna slide that on, barely slide it on, all right? And now you're gonna put your sprocket on here, and that's gonna be 66 inch-pounds. Double check your torque spec to make sure that it's the same for your vehicle, but it should slide right on with the pin. And you're gonna do those 4 torques. And then we're gonna put this timing tube on the camshaft. All right, so the way you can tell if you've got it in all the way is you'll rotate it back and forth and the pin will slide in. And now it's in all the way. And now we're gonna put our bolt here in at 58 foot-pounds. You wanna put it in a vise right here and torque this to 58 foot-pounds. And then we're gonna put the cap on, and that's 11 foot-pounds. All right, so we got the camshaft all together and put together. So now you want to pull your filter out right here and inspect it, and then clean all the silicone here because we're going to be reinstalling this cam cap. But we got to get this all clean before we put the camshafts in. All right, you're going to go ahead and pull out this cap right here, and the angle right there, that little divot, that goes down. So we're going to go ahead and just clean this. A wire wheel is really good to clean this. And then you're going to go ahead and clean out that. And also back there, you want to go ahead and pull those half moons out and clean those and clean that channel. You don't want to have to redo this valve cover because your half moons are leaking. And you're going to go ahead and get all the silicone cleaned out from all around here for the end bearing cap. And also here, you're going to go ahead and get all this cleaned out. And I'll show you what it looks like when you put it back together. All right, so before you put your cams in, You want to make sure that you go ahead and clean your valve cover surface. It's easier now while the cams aren't in. Go ahead and clean that all up. All right. And this end here, you want to make sure that you have all the silicone off of here, all around here, and you want to make sure you clean out this channel here. And go ahead and clean all this out. Your cam seal is going to ride here. All right. So make sure you clean this out really, really good. Make sure you put your filter back. Do not forget to put your filter back. You're going to go ahead and get your end cam cap prepared because you're going to be putting silicone on this. All right. That's what it looks like when it's clean. Make sure you blow out all the air. Make sure you get all the little channels right there. I like to use a little pick and scrape out the silicone. And I'll show you how that silicone goes. And then here's what this is going to look like. This is really tedious to clean because there's not a lot of room here for the wire wheel. But anyways, got this all cleaned up. And once you have all that cleaned up, we're going to get ready to install the cams. And we're going to set the cams in. We're going to go ahead and slide the cam seal up here, up in there. We're going to set both of the cams in. And then we're going to prepare the end cam cap with silicone, and we're going to put all our other cam caps in. So this is what it should look like when you have it laid out. You got all your cam caps in order, like that. So I have it back to front, and then obviously the end cam cap. All right, now you will notice that there are two sets of marks on these cams. There is a single dot and a double dot. All right, when I took this apart, my single dots were together. So as I put these cams in, I will make sure that they roll together like that, where the two dots come together. And that's how we'll set them in. As the cams are in, they will actually be like this. And then as I tighten them down, both cams will roll in. So when you set them in, you'll just have to make sure that it lines up. It's not going to sit in there like that. It's going to sit in there like that. You know, it's going to be up a little bit. All right, let me get these cams in. All right, so as you can see right there in the middle, my two dots are together. All right, the cams are laid in. My cam seal is up here, okay? And when we set this cam cap on, right before we torque it, we're going to go ahead and push this cam seal up so it's up on the top and the bottom, so it's going to seal all the way around. And now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and loosely install all these rear cam caps. All right, I'm so glad this happened so I could show you. So what you got to watch out for is you see this bottom hole right there. It's full of oil. This is one of the holes for the cam cap. If I put this bolt on and torqued it down, it would not have torqued properly and it could have cracked the head because that hole is full of oil and it's not going to go anywhere. And you can't compress liquid. So you need to make sure you take an air nozzle and blow out all your bolt holes. Make sure there's no oil. And this is really, really important with head bolts. All right, I'm glad that happened so I could show you. All right, one thing you'll notice if you ever get your cam caps mixed up, they will be stamped intake on this one, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhaust 2, 3, 4, 5. Starts at the front and goes to the rear. So if you ever got them mixed up, that's how you can figure out which one goes where. So this is what it's going to look like right here. And this is how we're going to put our seal packing on. So it goes like this, all right? And so you're gonna put it on like that. So you're gonna put it in the shaded area, just around the edge, right there, and right there. So if you see right there, it says notice, do not apply seal packing to the front bearing cap grooves. So you see how it's showing you the grooves, which are these. Do not put silicone in those. It goes around those. All right. And then don't forget, as you get this together, do not forget to put silicone around this. So all I do is put a bead of silicone all around, and then I put it in place. Now this part right here with the cutout, this went to the bottom. So you're just gonna put silicone and you're gonna just push this in place. And then we're gonna set our front bearing cap on. As you can see, I have all my bearing caps on and they're just lightly installed. These two bearing caps come out together because they have a feed pipe, and the feed pipe goes from here. There's a bracket, and a feed pipe. So I took all this out together and I put it in all together. Now, one last thing to do before you do this is make sure that nothing went wrong in there and that your two dots still line up. That is very important. All right, let me get this ready for install. All right, so to torque this all down, this shows you what bolts are what, and then you have the length. All right, and it shows you the torque spec, so it's gonna tell you which bolts are which. And then we're gonna scroll down. It's gonna show you the procedure of torquing them. And then that tells you the bolts. So all of bolt C, you're gonna torque to 66 inch-pounds, and all the rest are gonna be 12 foot-pounds. And if you go back here, you'll find that bolt C is a 1 inch, and bolt C is only these outside ones here. And then all the rest, it's showing as 12 foot-pounds, but be very careful when you torque this that you make sure it's right for your vehicle. All right, so I've got it all snugged and I'm about to torque it. You can see I have my cam seal pushed in all the way around, both sides, all the way around. And you notice I still have my service bolt in. And this threads in by hand because all this does is hold the two halves together. All right, let's torque it. Okay, so I can't stress this enough. At this point, we've got it back together. Cams are in, cams are torqued. Absolutely do not forget to take this service bolt out, or you will be in a world of hurt when things turn and things break. Don't forget that service bolt. About 1 inch long. It's 6mm by 1. All right, so now the cams are in. I don't need to do anything else with the cams. All right, so I've got it all snugged and I'm about to torque it. You can see I have my cam seal pushed in all the way around, both sides, all the way around. Okay, so once you've got your front bearing cap on and all your bearing caps torqued, from that point you're gonna go ahead and put your valve cover back on. You're gonna go ahead and put your valve cover back on, put your coils back in, reassemble all of that. And then you're gonna just refer back to earlier where we talked about the timing belt and how to reinstall. You're gonna just put that front sprocket back on with those Allens and then put it back together. And that's how you put the rest of this back together. All right, so after this video, I hope you feel comfortable going in there and removing these cams, replacing the cam seal, and don't ever forget that service bolt. Anytime you see a Toyota that has an exhaust sprocket that's not driven off of the timing system, meaning that it's just driven off of the cam, the intake cam, make sure that you really read that procedure, because there's almost always a service bolt that goes in to hold that thing in place. Don't ever forget that. The minute I popped that valve cover off, I went service bolt. I just remembered from previous jobs that I've done. So I hope this really helps you and you feel comfortable going in and doing this job. In the future, I will do a full water pump timing belt video with the water pump off. In this one here, I didn't pull the water pump off because obviously I was just fixing a problem. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you definitely don't want to miss. Also, check me out on Instagram. My daily life as a mechanic, where I show you all kinds of cool stuff, show you tools that I like to use on a daily basis. I show you tools that make me money. And sometimes they don't make it in the videos. They're just little random things that I like to use and little ways that I found to use them that can help you. If you ever come across something that works for you and is a nice little tip, hey, send it my way and I'll pass it along. So also check out my merchandise store. We can get a t-shirt or a coffee cup. Support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.